Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to another episode of Spirit Speakeasy. My guest this week is called the Nope Coach, like Nope, nope, not having it. Her name is Suzanne Culberg. She is a new friend from Sydney, Australia, and she really opens up and has this amazing conversation with us. You'll hear me mention in the episode, I've been on her newsletter for a little while now, and I really love the way she so openly shares and suggests. And we really get into it around boundaries, understanding, why they're so important, why it's important to start understanding our own boundaries and taking responsibility, when possible earlier in relationships. But we also really unfold boundaries with our kids, boundaries in small ways, with friends, with gift giving and receiving, the difference between asserting a boundary or stating a boundary and being rude. Like, we really go into it quite a bit. And I just love this conversation. I could have talked to her for hours and really just continue to unfold this idea around boundaries. I know a lot of us as sensitives, as empaths, as intuitives, and just as human souls, we tend to want to please people and want to make other people feel comfortable and happy. And we really talk about how both things can be true at the same time. We can want to nurture others and set things up in a way that's going to feel win-win for everyone, but that we get to have our feelings too and be a priority as well. So without further ado, I'm so excited to welcome you into Spirit Speakeasy and welcome you into this conversation with Suzanne Culberg. And of course, all of her wonderful links are in the bio. Join me right now for this conversation with Suzanne Culberg, the Nope Coach. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back for another episode of Spirit Speakeasy. Our guest today is Suzanne Culberg. She is known as the Nope Coach, who helps overgivers and people pleasers learn to set boundaries and say no without feeling like a bitch or a mean person, whatever you like in there. Suzanne is known for being a direct AF and, of course, for her wacky t-shirts. She lives in Sydney, Australia with her husband and two awesome children. And as you will soon learn, she is a self-proclaimed sweary fairy. Welcome in, Suzanne. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Tori. I was like, what t-shirt do I have on today? It's
Introverts
Unite.
Oh,
and then
perfect.
Separately. So down the bottom, it's like separately.
Introverts unite separately. I love it. That is perfect for a lot of our listeners and friends of the pod. I would love it if you would just kind of start by sharing a little bit of your story. You have such an interesting, multifaceted background. I'm curious how you got to be the Nope Coach.
When people say that, it's like, where do you want to start? Like, seriously.
Let's start with, you were on track at one point to be a medical physician.
Oh, okay. So,
yes.
Let's start there. I went to medical school and I knew in like the first week that this wasn't for me. I think a lot of times people stick at things for a very long time, but when you really ask them or reflect, they know at the outset, like, ugh. But I wasn't the Nope Coach then. I didn't stand my ground or speak up for myself. And my parents were like, oh, but you worked so hard to get in. Like, just give it a couple of years. Like, it'll get better. Once you start seeing patients, once you're out of this clinical school, uni setting, it didn't get better. And at the time, it's since changed, but you used to do, it was a 2-degree program here. So at the end of the 4th year, you get your Bachelor of Medical Science. And then at the end of your 6th year, you get the Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery. So I agreed to stay for the 4 years.
That's quite a bit of hanging in.
And then by the time I got to the end of the 4th year, my parents were like, it's only 2 more years. You've already done 4. What's that? So I actually did 5th year. So I stayed for 1 extra year and then I was done. And everybody, it always fascinates people. They're like, but you were so close. You only had a year to go. And I was like, yeah, to be a doctor of nothing. Like when you leave medical school, yes, you have MD. Yes, you have doctor in front of your name. But you need to do an intern year and then residency, which is a couple of years minimum. And then registrar, which is usually up to 10 years. So you're looking at a decade before you're like a physician. Unless you become a general practitioner, it's shorter. But I didn't want to follow that path, But I was like, why am I here? So I think, technically that was the beginning of like, nope, I'm out. And I was just like, I don't want to do this. And I think sometimes people are like, oh, but what about the time you've spent? And then they have this sunk cost fallacy and whatever. But the money's been invested in going to this school and whatever. The money's done. I can't get it back. And the time is gone. Can't get that back either. But continuing to spend more time and more money and more energy trying to turn around the Titanic when we know that ship's sinking,
Yeah.
not a good use. So I actually
Well,
hadn't made that connection, but great question. I probably was the beginning of me going like, no, this is not for me.
it's such a powerful lesson. And I feel like so many people, whether it's medical school or maybe a relationship that we felt like we were supposed to be in to follow our family's expectations, or a job that we have time in, and a field that we've been like trudging along, knowing somewhere deep inside, maybe it's not quite a fit. I've actually, you don't know this about me, but I've been criticized quite a bit in my life for jumping ship or being a quitter, quote unquote. I always look at it as counting my losses sooner than later when I realize something's like really not for me. But I just love that you have this as part of your experience, because I think it's so powerful in saying like, hey, it's okay to, take that ship and turn it a different direction.
I also think it's fascinating when people are so quick to label people as quitters or this or that. Like, are you really a
Yeah.
quitter, or do you have the strength to go, I don't want to be in this space, so I'm removing myself from it? I think it takes
Yeah.
so much more wherewithal to leave than it does to hang out in something that's not serving you.
Well, there's those layers of fear and people pleasing and expectation. And I lovingly call myself a recovering people pleaser, as you know. I think a lot of us here are, and we recognize some things in ourselves that we're working on and creating better boundaries around. But I don't know about you, but for me, it feels like sometimes something will come in so sneakily from the side. And it's like, oh man, I didn't even realize that I was doing that. I've been loving your newsletter, your weekly. I think it's more than once a week that you send out sometimes a little blurb or a little writing about your experience, and I just love that those are so honest and raw and real. And one of the things I'm so drawn to about your work is that it's not about achieving some standard of perfection or doing it right. It's about being human and adjusting along the way, right?
Well, I don't know. I can't speak for everyone, but
Yeah.
from my observations, the people who have achieved that level of perfection that we aspire to are usually miserable. Like, and then we can't understand it. We're like, but you're rich or you're famous or you're successful or you've made it or whatever. Like, you should. And like, if I was that, and it's like, but they're not. And I think the level to
Yeah.
speak honestly, it's like, actually, I got this thing, I've reached the pinnacle, and it sucks. I think more
Yeah.
people being honest about that rather than talking it up into something. Like, I remember having my kids and I said to my parents, like, you didn't tell me how hard this would be. And they're like, oh, well, if we told you how hard it'd be, you might not have had them. And I was
Oh,
like,
that's so funny.
you know, and it's just a little bit more honest rather than, because I think so many people get down on themselves or second guess themselves or beat themselves up because you think you're the only one. And you're
Yeah.
not. It's just people aren't talking about it in whatever it is about how hard it is.
It's so true. Either it's so hard, or we realize once we achieve the thing or the certificate or whatever it is, like, oh, I'm still missing the thing that I thought this was going to cover.
I'm still me. I've lost
I'm
the
still
weight. I've met
me.
the man. I've got the kids. I've bought the house. And I'm not suddenly magically self-confident and loving every single day. Like, there's still work to do. Nobody
Yeah.
told me this. All the internet gurus told me that I just need to do this stuff. And then I'd ride off into the sunset. Like, where's my sunset?
I know. Will you share the part of your story that I read about? Sometimes we call it like a down in your knees moment, your bathroom stall moment. I love this story.
Do you want me to share it?
Yeah, I would love it if you
Yeah.
would.
Okay. So this technically is the Nope Coach. Like, it's funny. You try and come up with that pivotal moment or whatever it is. And this is the one that I came to, but the medical school one might have also been one. And I think none of us have one pivotal moment. We have a lot of them.
Exactly.
You have a lot of the bits that are just kind of like knocking at your door that you ignore.
Yeah.
But so basically, when I had my oldest child, I met a bunch of women who were also having children, and we formed like this mums group. And one of them didn't have a car, and when I was like driving with my daughter to wherever it was, I'd see her pushing her son in the pram. I think you guys call it a stroller, but anyway.
Yeah.
And a couple of times I'd see her coming home from the supermarket, like the grocery store, with all the bags tied around the stroller. And I was like, that must be so hard. So I said to her, would you like me to take you to the shop, like the supermarket, once a week when I go, and we can get our groceries. And she was like, oh my God, I'd love that. And that to me, like, that's being generous. And I think a lot of us people pleasers were like, oh, I'm not a people pleaser, I'm just generous. So if you're doing something anyway, I'm going to the supermarket, would you like me to pick you up? You're on the way. That's generous. So once a week, I'd pick her up. She'd put her son's car seat in. Off we'd go. When we buy the groceries, we put them in the boot. You guys would call it the trunk. Her bags would be open. My bags would be tied off, so we knew whose was who. It was fun. It was efficient. We had the best time. Then what started to happen was, like, in the middle of the week, she'd be like, oh, I've run out of nappies. Can you quickly run me to the shop? Or, oh, I've got to, get this. And that is not generous. But once again, I didn't say no. It was only one extra time. It's not a big deal. Sure.
Well, you're building a relationship with this person, and you're cultivating a friendship a little bit. So I'm probably lent you more to doing it and saying yes.
A couple of times it was twice a week. Then it became 3 times a week. And then it became every other day. And I think for us, recovered people pleasers or people who are still in the people pleasing thing, it doesn't start the way that you end up. And I think that's where a lot of us, it's like, well, I never said no and I never did this. If I'd met this person and from day one, she's like, every other day I want you to run me all over the place. No, it's so easy to say no then. But it's not how it starts. It starts so insidiously. And then her family, like we call ourselves, I can't remember, but most of us had family interstate. So her family was coming to visit. She's like, can you pick them up from the airport? The airport's over an hour from my house.
Wow.
And I didn't think to say no. They were catching a flight that landed just after 6 a.m. So here I am driving an hour and, all these little things. Then it was her kid's first birthday party. Can you take all the stuff down to the park? Then because their parents were here, oh, well, I can't, I'm going to go and hang out with them. So then I'm washing up all the items from her kid's birthday. Anyway, it got ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
It got ridiculous, but in the back of my head, there was a little bit of resentment, if I'm being honest, but I never said anything. And I think this is a point too. Like, I didn't speak up. So one day we're at a mum's group meeting hangout. I'm in the toilet, so I'm in the bathroom stall, and she's at the sink with another friend. And the friend's like, do you want to come to whatever this is? And then the friend's like, oh, actually, you don't have a car. So sorry, And she's like, oh, no, Suzanne will take me. She's my little bitch. And I'm sitting in the stall, and I just feel like my chest tighten and my shoulders sag. And I feel like, oh, my gosh, like, she doesn't value me at all. She just called me her little bitch. Like, I don't think I was mad as much as I was hurt.
Yeah.
And I think, the saying, the truth hurts. Like, that, that was the moment. I was. And I didn't handle that in any way the way I would now. Like, it's been many years and I've worked a lot on this and now it's my career. But that friendship was kaput.
Yeah.
And it really, really hurt. And I realized that in my bid to be a good friend, I was a doormat. And they call people pleasers sometimes exploding doormats. Like, you take it, you take it, you take it until you don't.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that went down.
And it's so multi-layered, right? Because it is hurtful because you thought you had a different friendship with this person than clearly what their intention was. And it's probably you realizing, oh, I've been being manipulated to some degree here. But then I could feel in there that evaluation too of like, oh, well, I did say yes to these things and I didn't say no. So if someone is hearing this and realizing like, oh, I'm kind of doing that with, either another parent at school or someone in my workplace, what do you feel like are the first steps for someone when they're identifying like, oh yeah, I kind of am agreeing to things that I don't really want to be agreeing to, and maybe I am having poor boundaries or being taken advantage of?
Before I get to the first step, the one thing I do want to say is if you are like me and you kind of blow up or you kind of bring it up in a way that's not healthy in the beginning, and that's okay, you haven't got the skills yet, sometimes the person will laugh it off. And that's what did happen. Like a few people, I didn't get into this on my website, and people have messaged me and said, so what happened, like when you raised it? And she laughed it off and she said, oh, it was just a joke. It wasn't a joke to me. Right. And I think sometimes people can kind of get around their shitty behavior by like, oh, it's just trying to be funny. So it's like, no, it's not funny to you. So being able to speak up and say, but to your point, like when you notice, oh gosh, this is happening, the thing that I do now always if anyone asks me for anything, except unless I have it right here. Like if I'm holding my pen and Joy, you're like, can I borrow your pen? Yeah, sure, here you go. Like it's right here. But if you're like, Suzanne, can you bake cakes for the stall? Can you like, oh, recently my kids' footy team, they want me to be the goal umpire. I'm like, I can't think of anything worse. Like what if I make the wrong call? But any sort of request, I'll get back to you. Like I need to check my diary. Like never make a decision in the moment.
Yeah.
Ever. I don't even do this on a sales call. Like when you go into things on business and people are like, if you make the call now, I'll give you, I don't care if you give me, I don't care what you give me. I need to sleep on it. And, and just like, don't make the decision right then. It's like, I will get back to you. I'll check my diary. Or if you know straight away that you really don't want to do it, but you kind of feel awkward about saying no, you say something along the lines of, I'm at capacity this week. If you still need help with this, come back to me next week or come back to me next month or whenever. Put the ball back into their court, because a lot of the times the people, like this woman wanting someone to go pick up her parents at the airport or wanting to pick up her groceries, nappies, prescription, whatever it is, they need that done urgently. So when you kind of say, like, not right now, they're going to go to the next sucker in line. So they're not going to come back to you because they need this thing done stat. So basically by saying, actually, not right now, I'm busy this week, come back to me next week or whatever, then they're going to move on to the next person and you don't really even need to have any form of awkward conversation.
This is such a good tip. This one has worked for me for years because I feel like I get really anxious is typically my first response. I do often quickly know if I could technically do the thing or couldn't do the thing. But I think for me, I tend to want to say yes to things or want people to like me or want to, help with the thing. And I often in the past, still sometimes now, if I'm honest, will find myself agreeing to things. And then even before the conversation is done, I'm like, oh, I didn't want to do that, or I wanted to have that hour to myself or whatever it is. So I think it is such an empowering tool to just say, like, can you just pause and say, can I sleep on that? Or let me get back to you tomorrow about that, or whatever it is, just to give some spaciousness, even if it's just to like exhale and evaluate, like, how do you actually feel about this request, right?
And the next tip, after you've done that, or if that one's not open to you, so like with my daughter's football team, can you be the goal umpire? I'd rather die. It's kind of like, that isn't the best use of my skills, or like, whatever it is, what else do you need done? So it's kind of like, is there another job open? And they're like, oh, we need somebody to cook the barbecue. Down. I can do that. I can stand there and flip sausages. That's not that hard. But do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, or if the school wants me to sell chocolates or bake cakes or whatever, what else do you need done? Like, what other jobs are there? Or like, whenever the school asks me to sell chocolates, like fundraising, let's break this down. The chocolates are $4 a box. The school maybe makes 50 cents. They give me 50 boxes, so they're going to get like $25. We know that's going to be $200 worth of chocolate in my house because I'm not going to let my kids door knock, and I can't sell them to their friends because their friends go to the same school, so they have their own chocolate. So I'm like, let's just cut out the middleman. Here's $30 donation to the school. They're $5 ahead. Everyone's happy. So I'm not out $200 and thousands of calories. So it's kind of like, is there an alternate thing? So I think, sometimes, especially if it is a friendship, like say, for example, you're like, Suzanne, I want to go and see, I don't know, like Downton Abbey or something. And you'll be like, oh, Joy, thank you so much for inviting me to the movies. I'm not really into like period drama. What else is there showing that you want to see? It's like I want to spend time with you. Or I'm not really a movie buff. What else could we do? Oh, do you like bowling? Let's go. So I think sometimes we feel this anxiousness is in like, oh my God, it's this or nothing.
Right.
And then this level of honesty. So like, or if you invite me to like a Tupperware party or whatever, it's like, I don't really like plasticky kind of stuff. But if you have a candles party, I'll be the first person there. So I think that rejection is just a redirection, because what tends to happen, you invite me to your Tupperware party, oh no, not this week, the kids have soccer, and then you ask me next time. I've got no intention of going, so you ask me next time, oh no, my husband is away, and then every time, and then the person's like, I think she just doesn't want to hang out with me. And it's like, I want to hang out with you, I'm just not interested in plastic. So people like, I don't want to be rude by saying this, and it's like, but are you being more rude by going next time when you have no intention of it?
Well, it's so true. And then I think for some people, for myself at times, even just the trying to negotiate like, okay, well, I don't really want to do that. It feels a little confrontational in some way, even though it's not. So I love having that extra half step of like, is there something else that you want to do? Especially as I kind of toe that line or can flex between introvert and extrovert. I just had a friend last week. It was her birthday. And I said, can I take you to lunch? And she was already having lunch with some friends. And my immediate like internal gut response was like, I don't know them. I'm going to be intruding. This is awkward. What if they wanted special time with like this whole laundry list of probably people pleasing thoughts? But it's funny because I kind of slipped just into what you said and said, I just, since I don't know them, maybe I could meet them at a different time. And I'd love to take you to coffee another time. Let me know what feels spacious for you has been a phrase I've been using a lot with people. So I love that little, it's like a half step. If it's too big of a step to say, no, or let me look at my calendar, or like you said with the soccer, it's like, or football, it's right away, right? It's like right now.
Also, you can get on the think about a time, and I've got a story where, okay, I'll give a story. And my mum, one time for Mother's Day, I purchased her white linen perfume. I don't know why. Like, part of me is like, I don't tend to buy. Anyway, I don't know why I bought her this, but anyway, she was like spraying it on everywhere. She's coating it on. I was like, oh my God, my mum loves this. That's where I went to it. She's like, she's using it all the time. She's spraying it like there's no tomorrow. So in my head, I was like, my mum loves it. So every Mother's Day, every birthday, every Christmas, I was like, here you go. Here's your next white linen. I thought I was the best daughter in the world. Anyway, fast forward till I have my own child. So this is how long I've been buying her this stuff for.
Oh gosh.
First Mother's Day school, my little kindy child, so she's like 4 or 5, comes and gives me this, I don't know what it is. And anyway, I'm like, oh my God, it's awful. And I'm like, my daughter's name's Xanthi. I'm like, Xanthi, thank you so much. I love that you went to Mother's Day store and you bought this thing, and I really appreciate it. Mummy doesn't like smelly, scented things, which is true. I'm very, I said, so in future, could you get me a sticker or a card or I gave her a list of things that I'd like, but not anything that has a scent with it. And she's like, okay, Mummy, and off she toddles, and everyone's happy. And my mum is watching this interaction, and the second she's out of earshot, she's like, you're the worst mother in the world. I'm like, excuse me? She goes, how dare you tell your daughter you don't like her present? I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, do you know how many years I've been wearing white linen? And I'm like, so like, who is the bad
Your
guy
heart,
in that
I'm sure.
situation? Because I was like, that shit was expensive, and I was saving up, and I thought that you loved it. And I think sometimes in our people-pleasing ways, we don't speak up. We don't say, I don't like this or whatever. We're just like, And like, I've had clients. I remember I had a lady in my Patreon. I can't remember what episode I was talking about. I have a solo podcast. And she relayed this story, and she's like, my grandmother bought me this jumper that was hideous, like absolutely hideous. And I would just like, crack it out whenever she came over and make sure I wear it and whatever. And then she's like, she moved away or something. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to see her again. So she's like, I donated it to like the op shop or whatever. But then she was like coming to visit. She's like, so I'm driving from op shop to buy this jumper. And anyway, then the grandmother asked about it, and she was honest. And she said, look, I didn't really like it. And she's like, well, why didn't you tell me? Like, I would have, people, when they're giving you a gift or wanting to spend time with you, like, imagine, like, I wonder how many relationships, friendships break up for this very thing. Like, my husband and I, we've been together 23 years now. And from the get-go, I was like, I don't like Japanese animation. I love that you love it, but I'm not going to sit through this and pretend. Yeah. And then 5 years into our relationship, be like, God, can we watch something that I want to watch? So it's like, you do something. I'm not saying not ever. Like, if my kids play sport, I'll go watch them play sport, even if the sport doesn't interest me, because that's me being there for them. But if they're like, what do we want to do together? I'm not going to go, let's go to a sports match. So, yeah.
I think it's so interesting. So maybe part of it, when it's possible or when we've kind of worked on it a little bit, it sounds like the best way to do it is start boundaries earlier in a relationship, or at least saying your opinion, kind of like, I don't love this anime, but like, I'll do it sometimes, whatever it is. But if I'm excited to ask you about this, because struggle's maybe not the right word, but I struggle with this a little bit. Like, if I'm receiving a gift, I'm so grateful that someone has like gone through the time and the thought, and even if it's a lovely gift, that's very special, but maybe not something I would ever use or like or want to have. Where's that line of like offending someone or hurting their feelings, or saying it when it's unnecessary or rude versus this boundary of like you said with your mom, like I so appreciate you doing this, but actually I'd really rather not have something has a scent.
I think personally, it's kind of the meaning of cruel to be kind. It's in
Yeah.
like, if somebody gives you something, you can be thankful that they thought of you. Like you can be like, thank you so much. I appreciate the gesture, or I appreciate, so like not a gift as such, but a lot of my clients, a lot of my followers, a lot of my people write books, and I love to read. And in the beginning, if people would send me a book, I'd feel so obligated to read it because like they sent it to me. And what happens is if I don't like it and I'm stuck reading it, and that's like a 10-hour investment depending on what it is.
Stack of books across the room right now like this.
So it's kind of like now what I say to people, and also too, before you give somebody something, depending on how it is, ask them, do they actually even want it? Like if it's their birthday and you've given them a gift, but like in business, people will give you stuff all the time in hopes that you will shout it out or mention it or whatever. But, if you haven't been clear, like there's been some times where people have written back to me and go, well, you shouted out this person's book and I sent you mine, but there was no worded contract here.
Right.
Like, so it's kind of, if someone says to me, hey, I've written a book, can I send it to you? What I will say to them is, I'd love a chapter. Like, send me a chapter. Because then I can read it and go, oh, that's awesome. Joy, send me the rest of your book. I'd love to. Or whatever. But like one chapter doesn't take me that long. But I think, if it's someone's birthday and we're giving them a gift, are we taking the time to see what they actually like, or are we giving them what we would like or what we think they should like and then getting annoyed? So if anyone gives me any decor for my house and I don't like it, I'm not displaying it. I'm not putting it in the cupboard and pulling it out when Joy comes over. It's just like, I didn't ask for this. And I think sometimes we get all offended and bent out of shape, but the person has clearly said what they like. Like in the days of gift registries and stuff, there's really no excuse. If someone's like, oh, here's, I'm getting married, here's my wedding gift registry. Oh, well, I don't want to get him something off that. I want to get him this. I had this happen for my wedding. My best friend decided,
I love a registry. Like, please give me a registry.
She gave me this stuff. I didn't like it. And it was just like, it was so awkward. But it's like, that's something you wanted to display in my house. I'm not going to put it up just because you're coming over. And I think the more we have this kind of conversations with love, with care, and in terms of starting to set boundaries, as you said earlier in the relationship, with people you don't know. Like I was so bad. I was such a yes person. If I went anywhere, would you like a side of corn? Yes. Would you like a bag? Yes. Would you like some? I'd buy everything. Like I would be the sucker for the add-on sale. If you're like me, start with that. No, thank you. I brought my own bag. Okay. So it's in the littlest place, and then celebrate that. Like, yes. Gosh. And it's funny to people who don't have an issue with this. Like my husband's never had an issue saying no. He's like, what on earth? Why are you happy that you said no to the corn? If you'd wanted corn, you would have ordered it.
This is such an important thing though, because so many of us are conditioned or taught that like it's rude to say no, or it's rude to not accept a gift or to not engage. And truly what you're saying is right. We should be able to have boundaries with total strangers, of course, and then maybe graduate to those that are closest to us.
Is it rude to have boundaries or whatever, or say no to a gift? What is the intention behind the gift? Like the number of people who give my podcast a 5-star rating, I love that. Thank you so much. And if they say, I also have a podcast, I may or may not choose to listen to it. But there's been one occasion where someone sent me a thing, said, I gave you a 5-star rating. Here's my show. You can give me one. Anyway, I looked at it and I was like, this is not a topic I have any intention of listening to. So I was like, thank you so much for your 5-star rating. I really appreciate it. That's not in a niche that I'm interested in listening to, but I wish you all the best for the show. They wrote back and go, well, in that case, I've changed my 5 to a 1. And I was like, good for you. Like people holding you over a barrel. Yeah. And for me personally, when I go to look at something, I don't look at 5 or 1-star ratings. I look at 3. That's where you're going to get the real talk.
Interesting. Yeah. I look at both, but I want to see what are they... Like, what's the 1 over? You know what I mean? Like, is it something ridiculous?
Or is it, they just gave me 1. So it's kind of like, it's really interesting. In the times of reviews, you can just give people things. It's like, if you don't do this for me, I'm going to give you a bad rating on Google. Okay, cool. That's really manipulative. And I think sometimes as people pleasers tend to attract narcissistic or,
like bullies,
Givers need to have boundaries because takers don't have any. So
Yeah.
it's like, and I just think the little permission thing is in like, I have this, I'd like this. Are you open to an invitation, not a demand? Because
Right.
sometimes we get demanding, like, I got this for you and you should like it and you're going to hang it up and you're going to wear it every day. And it's like, no.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense when you say it, but I feel like sometimes in the situation, it can feel a little different. So, how does someone go from, is it as simple as starting to implement with strangers in your day to day? What's the next step from that to kind of, okay, I've practiced saying no to the bag or the upgrade. What's the next layer of that?
I'd think about it as in, if you were going to the physical gym and you see the really fit people like bicep curling the dumbbells that are like, 20 or 40 pounds, and you can't even lift that off the rack, you need to start down in the 1 pound section and start where you are. So sometimes you listen to a podcast, read a book, whatever, and go, oh my God, boundaries, I got this. And then you go and try and implement it and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't got this. And then you beat yourself up and add to the evidence of how you can't do this.
Yeah.
But if you're going to the physical gym, you wouldn't expect to be able to curl those curls because you're not physically fit enough yet. And it's the same boundaries. There, no muscle needs to be built. So every time that you say no to the bag or no to the upgrade or, no thanks to the school chocolates or whatever, or ask for an alternate, celebrate that. Like, let that grow. And look at how many times people aren't offended or affronted or whatever. Like, I remember times where I've sat in something, I've been so cold because I'm too scared to ask, can we bump the thermostat up a couple?
Yeah.
Or I've dropped my cutlery on the ground and been like, I can't ask for another set. Why not? It's like, so every time that you start to speak up or you start to, like, have you watched Ted Lasso, Joy?
Yes. Oh my gosh, what an amazing show.
Remember the scene where he goes to the Indian restaurant? He says, make it like your family has it.
Yes.
And he doesn't know. And then he's there eating it. And then Troy, whatever his name is like, I can't eat this. And he's like, put it on my plate. We can't offend them. So he's like crying. Like, that was me. That would be me. I was like, oh my gosh. I remember going to dinner at a friend's place. They invited us over for this. I'd never had an Indian meal before. And it was something similar to that. But also, too, there wasn't a lot of food. And I thought, oh, okay. I didn't realize there was like 10 rounds of this. So I was so full that I'm just still eating because I couldn't dare say, oh my gosh. So it's kind of like, start to speak up. And every time that people don't push back or don't make you feel crap about yourself, just notice that the majority of the things in our head that they're going to go, say, do, be, like the person who's like, oh, I'm going to give you a 1 star then. That's been one person. I've probably had 50 of those emails. I've probably got hundreds of reviews on my show. And don't define your entire life by one person. Like you said how much you love my emails earlier in this call. I love that. I appreciate that. At least once a week, somebody will write back and say, fuck off, stop sending me shit. I kid you not. They signed up. I don't go around stealing emails off the internet. So it's kind of like there's always going to be people who have their stuff going on, but it's very little to do with us.
Well, I think it's such a good point, too, that it's like, make sure you're also tallying the times when the world didn't implode or the person just said, okay, that's fine, and moved along with their day. And because I do think we exhale on those. But for me, anyway, I'm maybe not as mindful of like, okay, let's look at the actual record here. Maybe one person, got offended over something. But the vast majority, we do tend to hold on to that one negative or challenge or versus really checking in on like, okay, historically, how's this been going
also,
for me?
Like your response when I said wish list or registry, you're like, oh, give me a registry. Most people who are giving you something want to give you something that you like, unless they have an agenda, and then it's not really a gift then, is it?
Right.
So it's kind of like when you say to somebody, actually, like, it's funny, for a long time, pink was my favorite color. Now it's purple. And people would always buy me pink stuff. And I love this. This is great. Awesome. In future, I like purple now. And they're like, oh, noted. It's not, I didn't drop it on the ground and stomp on it. I didn't throw it back at you and say it's awful. I can appreciate this and kind of like, same as like chocolate. I used to love, I don't know if you have it there. It's called Cadbury cream egg. It was my favorite.
Yeah, we do have Cadbury. It is a thing here.
And I ate it for years and years and years and years. And then I moved interstate when my husband and I got married. And I don't know, my taste changed. I don't like it. My family, every year when we did Easter, we don't anymore. I kind of lovingly remind them, I don't actually like this anymore. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Next year they'd forget. I didn't throw it back. I didn't stomp it. I didn't eat it. They didn't know that. So receiving the thing, but kind of lovingly, gently educating them. The same as like I run an online business. So I don't work a 9 to 5. My dad, if he tries to get hold of me during the day, he'd ring me. So I get off a call like this and I look at my phone, I have 15 missed calls. My thought would be like, who died? Like,
Yeah,
that's
of
where my
course.
brain goes. So saying, Dad, if I don't answer, just send me a text. Or in the morning, say, hey, I want to chat today when you break, because he's retired. That, and sometimes like setting these boundaries, people don't get it straight away. And I think that's why we don't want to impose, or we don't want to be rude. If you've been living your life this way up until now, if you've been sitting through Japanese animation with your husband because he loves it and you're like, oh, I can't stand this, and you kind of say to him, this is not really my jam, and he'll go, yeah, and then you have to tell him about 10 times. It doesn't mean that he doesn't value you. It's just that you've developed this habit and now you need to develop a new one. And also, too, whenever you have a conversation about a boundary or something, make sure you have the person's full attention. I can ask my husband for the world when he's playing his Xbox, and he'll say yes. And then he'll have no recollection of it because he wasn't paying attention to me.
He wasn't there, really. So how do you, if someone does feel or hear themselves in this conversation and say, yeah, actually with my partner, there are some things I'd like to just create a new boundary around. How does someone, I'm single right now, so like I don't have this situation right now, but how does one say, okay, I want to create the space and time and focus for this conversation, but I don't want to do the thing where I make it seem like a big deal? Or how do we do it in a way that doesn't feel accusatory, that feels very gentle and easy, but we're still making sure we have like that carved out focus?
It will depend on your relationship and how they'll receive it. So like for me, for Suzanne, if anyone says to me, we need to talk.
Yeah.
To me, I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to get fired.
Instant
or
tummy
whatever.
ache, right?
You know?
Like, oh.
Like sometimes I'll get an email subject heading about your newsletter, and I'll be like, oh God, what tirade are they going to go down?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
my kids know they have to text me with everything is fine, but
it's like when the school
I need to talk
rings,
or whatever it
when
is.
the school calls and you see that number, and I'm like, hello, and most office ladies or gentlemen, usually ladies, will say, it's such and such from school, the kids are fine, and then you can feel, but sometimes they don't, and you're not listening because you're waiting for, have they fallen off a swing?
Right, exactly.
Anyway. So it's kind of like, what kind of relationship do you have with the person, with the friend, with the partner? So like with my husband, he's an engineer. He's so
okay. That says a lot.
I'll be like, we need to have a conversation, and he'll be like, okay, let's schedule a time. Like he's not me, but if he says that to me, alarm bells will be going. You don't need to be the same as in like how you approach. But if you're approaching somebody like me, everything's fine. It's thing,
Yeah.
But I want to have a talk or a serious talk or a heart to heart or however you word it. When you be available, like schedule a time, because sometimes we've built this up in our head and it's really whatever for us. We don't know what they've got going on. So like even with your friends, so with my friends, I'm so introverted. Don't call me, as in like don't ring without texting me first. Hey,
that's just not a thing. That's just not a thing. Yeah.
One of my friends is a raging extrovert. She's like, I didn't make friends with you. You didn't make friends with me. I adopted you. And just recently I rang her and she answered with, what's wrong? And I was like,
that's funny.
Huh? And she's like, you never ring without texting first. And I was like, I was out for a walk and the kid, it was just so funny though, because we've developed this thing. So how you approach the thing is in whether it's, we need to talk like I could do with my husband, he'd be fine, or nothing's wrong, but I want to make some changes, or I want to have a chat or a heart to heart or whatever, so that you can schedule a time so that you can both not have your distractions. So your phones are on silent or whatever it is. And it could be you sit at a table, you go for a walk, you sit on the couches, talk on the phone, whatever it is. But having that time so that they're prepared for it as well, or on board, or giving you their attention, and then deciding how you talk about it. Because sometimes I think people are scared to set a boundary because they're like, oh my gosh, this person will be so mad or whatever. A boundary means you want to continue the relationship. A boundary is a good thing. If you didn't want, you wouldn't bother. So it's kind of like, and then when you start the conversation, I always begin them with up until now. So you acknowledge this is how it's been happening. Up until now, whenever we watch something, it's always been Japanese animation. Honestly, I love you. I don't actually love that as much as you do. So I'd like to find something that is a middle ground or something that we both enjoy. So from here on out, can we try some new things or whatever? And it's as simple as that, up until now. You can do this in business. I've had a number of, I don't do DMs in my business in any way, shape or form. I think unsolicited DMs are the dick pics of the social media world.
I agree.
Don't want them. You know what I mean? So with my clients, up until now, I've answered via whatever platform. And also too, I don't know about you, but I can't keep track. Did I message them on Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp or no.
It's so much. Yeah, it's
So
a
it's
lot.
kind of like, and from here on.
Yeah.
And also, how does that land for you? Like, what do you think? What are your thoughts? So you're bringing them in. So I can think of a very personal example. It's got to do with my kids. My daughter has anxiety. I have anxiety too. I'm not surprised. And she, for me, what would have been ideal is that she'd tell me immediately after school, like, this is what's happened. And what would happen is she'd come to me at like 10 o'clock at night when I'm about to get into bed. I'm like brushing my teeth and she should be in bed. And then she'd offload. And then I would listen. But then I can't go to sleep after that. Like, I'd tuck her in and she would have got rid of all her stuff and off she'd go to sleep. And then I'm like, oh, I'm the world's worst mum and this and that. And
you're in like damage control mode. Yeah.
2 a.m. unpacking my own emotions. So I'm like, up until now, I've talked about this whenever you want to talk about it. I can't have these conversations so close to bed because also my son gets up. He's on the spectrum, so he gets up really early. So anyway, long story short. So I want to have these conversations immediately after school. And she's like, okay. And then after school, she wouldn't say anything. And then that night it'd be 10 p.m. again. And I was like, oh. So having to hold that boundary and say, actually, no. The first night I was like, I'm the worst mum in the world. But then what happened is over time, I started checking in because the thing is she wasn't. So, and what we worked out was after school, it was too soon for her. She hadn't unwound enough yet. But in the evening is too late for me. So it ended up being around 7 p.m. So we've had dinner, kind of like that wind down time.
Yeah.
And then, you know, some of this boundary you can have, like for me, ideally after school, it didn't work. So it changes over time and you have these conversations with the people that you love, but then you need to hold the boundary when it's 10 p.m. And so now what happens is it's about 7. I check in each day. Anything you want to unpack? No. You know that if we don't unpack it now, it's got to wait till tomorrow. I know. Because then they'll just keep doing the same thing if you let it. So it can be really hard in the beginning, but people get it and then you grow together.
Well, it's a great point too, because it's a work in progress. It's some of it sounds like it's about knowing your audience, the person that you want to talk to. Maybe they're not good before they've had a cup of coffee in the morning or whatever it is. So that's me. So maybe there is some consideration on both parts. It's funny you mentioned this. I'm having a little boundaries thing with my daughter. She's 24 now, and she likes to only text. We both have our own anxiety stuff and our own processing stuff. So she prefers to text. She prefers things in writing. I have a challenge when it's a serious conversation. I feel like I'm being asked to put it in like a social media post of like, put this very serious response to this traumatic event. Yes, exactly. And I'm like, okay, this is not working for me because she's not hearing my tone. She's not. And when I'm direct, because I tend to be very soft around the edges with people I care about, if I'm direct, people tend to read it as I'm angry, I'm being mean, I'm whatever it is. So how would you address it if people have boundaries that are a little bit at odds? It sounds like that's kind of what happened with your daughter, where it's you preferred one time, she preferred another, and we kind of kept stepping around each other until we could massage it enough and meet in the middle.
If you have different communication styles, so that's another example. Like I prefer talk because, as you said, you can hear tone and you can hear the pauses. And if I have to write something, it takes me 10 times as long. Yes. Because then I need to rewrite it. And then, what if I hear it like this? Like if I say no, oh no, you know, you can say, oh yeah, she thought about no. Or if you read it on text, no. You know
exactly. I mean? Like it's two different inflections there.
It's having the conversation. So most of my one-on-one clients, I do Voxer, like voice message with. And there is one client, and for whatever reason, she's vehemently opposed. She won't do voice message. And I'm like, okay, cool. But then I said to her, look, when I write email, I can look really direct. I don't do the, hi, Joy, love. I'm just answering your question. So it's like, don't listen to it, the tone, the way that I speak. It looks clipped. It looks direct. So like having the conversation with your daughter, it's like, the reason this doesn't work for me is, you know, like it takes me so much time, or, you know, I feel really restricted, or I feel like you're going to screenshot it and send it back to me like evidence, you know? So it's kind of like maybe finding a ground of like, if you're going to insist that I communicate like this, I'm not doing the pleasantries like of hi, bye, whatever. Or we can communicate like this however much time, but once a week we talk on the phone, or like finding some sort of middle ground, because like it's funny. My husband was actually my sister's friend first because he was friends with her husband, and they were friends and whatever. When we met, she was like, why does he always email you back? He never writes back to me, And I asked him about it. We weren't dating. We were just friends at the time, whatever. He's like, because she never asked me a question. Like,
interesting.
She's like, you always ask. What's
that's
this?
very
What's
engineering
that?
minded.
It's
a period.
Like,
yeah.
And it's funny too. Like my son, he's on the spectrum, so it could be that. But like last term, he played soccer after school on a Thursday. He didn't want to do it this term, so I was planning to pull him out, which we did. And then the school principal said, oh, Casimir, we're changing the soccer from Thursday to Tuesday. Will that be a problem for you? And he's like, no, it's no problem. And I said, did you say to her, you're not planning to come back?
Yeah, it's no problem because I don't want to do it at all.
He's like, but she didn't ask that. She asked, is that going to be a problem?
Yeah.
No, it's not going to be a problem because I'm not doing it anymore. So you could be like, oh, that kid's, do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like sometimes these failures to communicate, like if you said, if you're assuming you're going to keep going with this thing, like I would be like, oh, so he's Tuesday's no worries. But he meant no worries because he's not coming. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, when we have this thing, if we say to the person, like I said to my daughter, I can't do 10 o'clock at night because I'm exhausted and I can't get to sleep. And then she didn't voice it, but I'm like, I'm guessing, and she nodded, that 3 p.m.'s too early for you because you haven't processed it yet.
Yeah.
But then sometimes it's 7. Like, and there's so many like examples of things where in our people-pleasing attempt, we're not helping the person, we're enabling them. If I keep talking to her at 10 o'clock at night, that's not helping her. That's enabling her thing. It's the same as my son. As I said, like another like dumb example. One day I was going to the city to watch Hamilton. Love that show. So when I dropped him at school, he'd forgotten his school bag. Now, in the past, I would have gone home, picked up his bag, just missed my show. Because if you get to late theatre here, they lock you out. I don't know if it's like over there. But I'm like, dude, you've forgotten your bag. Like, you're going to have to ask people to borrow a pencil and a rubber and a ruler. And sorry, you guys call it a razor. Don't worry.
I knew what you meant.
We
knew what you meant. It's okay.
But I did ring the canteen and organise a lunch for him. I didn't make my kids starve, but it's kind of like, I'm not going to put myself out to make it more convenient for you. And guess what? He's never forgotten his bag again.
Yeah.
Whereas if I kept running home, he kept forgetting it because he knew mum would save him. So sometimes in our people-pleasing rescuer tendencies, we aren't actually teaching anybody anything.
Well, and in some ways, I guess, like if it's not a kiddo, but more of like a colleague or an employee, we're not holding that standard for them to become the best of themselves and really take.
I've got an adult example that made me really unpopular.
Yeah.
I live in Sydney, so we have a lot of international sports games and stuff. My family's from Tassie, the tiny island down the bottom. My sister was coming to visit. She was hiring a vehicle, so she had a hire car. Anyway, she was going to the netball, and I said, whatever you do, book parking. You will not get parking on the day. Like Sydney is like this. And I said to her, Joy, at least 3 times, maybe 4. Book parking. Have you booked your parking yet? Have you booked your parking yet? She got here, was on the day or the day before, and I said, oh, so did you book the parking? And she's like, oh, no, I didn't. I said, oh, you need to catch a train. She's like, I'm not catching public transport. I don't know what the problem is. I love public transport, but, each their own. She's like, you can just drop me off. And the thing is, in the past, I would have. And I was like, oh, I've got to work. She goes, oh, you work for yourself? And I'm thinking, you want me to cancel my clients the day before because you didn't book the parking that I told you to book? So we kind of had this loggerheads thing about it. And I was like, I told you to book parking. You didn't book it. You're going to need to catch a train. And she's like, I don't want to catch a train. Her not wanting to catch a train is not my problem. And I was like, well, catch an Uber then. I don't want to pay for an Uber. So like often, we're trying to problem solve for people who don't want to be inconvenienced, but they don't have any problem inconveniencing us.
That's so true. And I think a lot of caretakers, people pleasers, we do try to preemptively, okay, make sure you do this and make sure you have this and make sure you organize the parking. And maybe people are used to us being a little bit permissive. And how did she react when you put your foot down and said, like, no, I've already told you?
She was pissed. Like there's often the biggest pushback from your closest people.
Of course.
And also I'm the youngest. When I grew up, like I think sometimes when you move away, you're frozen in time to them. Like the first year I moved away, I organized 2 surprise parties for my family interstate and flew down for them and all this sort of stuff. Like I was so, and then the fact that I even said to her, hey, you need to book the parking and mentioned it a couple of times, past me would have booked the parking and I hadn't even made the connection, but maybe Joy, that's what she was expecting. Oh, I would have just booked it for her.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like, no, letting people have the natural consequence of their actions, provided it's not dangerous. Like, I wouldn't say to my kid, don't walk into the street. Oh, like, no.
Yeah, of course.
But, it's kind of like, and then another one, like helping my kids with their homework. They know they need to ask me by this time. And I remember one time my daughter coming, look, once again, 10 o'clock at night, I've got to build a diorama. Oh, cool, when? By tomorrow? You're going to fail then, aren't you? And she's like crying, and she's like, you're the worst mum ever. Oh my goodness. Now, whenever she gets a project, that day, I've got this due. It's this far out. Like, because me doing her project for her is not setting her up for real life when she's got to go to a job or an interview or something and wondering why she doesn't get it because her mum's not there to do it for her.
It's so true. And some of it is, especially with kids, it's a consistency thing. Like my kids knew, do not ask me if you can do something if it's right now. Like it's a no. I need to know the day before. I need time to process. I need to do research or whatever it might be. I need to meet these parents, whatever it is. So I think that for me was an easier one to hold. But sometimes it is like we feel pushed in a corner. And what's the easiest or best or most successful way to kind of hold that boundary when something's happening without going into an overreaction? Is it just restating?
It's just kind of like it's noticing the pushback and noticing the hurt. People may very well feel hurt. We're not responsible for people's emotions. Like, and it's just reminding yourself of that, but they are not harmed. Like my sister, she didn't want to catch the train. Okay, for whatever reason, she doesn't like public transport. That's fine. She didn't want the hurt or the sting of having to pay for an Uber. Okay, but it's kind of like, but none of these, let people have their reactions, I guess, and not make it mean anything about you. Because people do have reactions. Like I have reactions all the time. I'm like, but as kids, it's funny. Young kids have a temper tantrum, throw it around, and then they're fine. But as an adult, you just tend to sit on it and seethe and sit on it and seethe. And it's kind of like whatever reaction they're having, they're entitled to it. It doesn't mean you literally need to witness it or be on the receiving end of it. And also too, like a boundary with people, it's kind of like if you raise your voice, I will hang up the phone. Like, I won't be yelled at. And although I'm a sweary fairy, I also won't be sworn at. Like, I swear, but I don't swear at. So it's kind of like, and I give people the one warning. You're yelling at me. I won't be spoken to like this. If this continues, I will end the call.
Right.
And then ending the call. And then it's funny, sometimes too, ending the call, if they ring straight back, now I don't answer. Because sometimes before I've answered and they've been like, nobody hangs up on me. But it's kind of like, you've got to look after yourself first. Self first isn't selfish. So if you don't want to be yelled at, if you don't want to be this sort of stuff, and also like your feelings are your own too. So it's like when you start to say you made me feel, it's I don't know, I felt like this in response to, and sometimes we do overgive and overdeliver and override our own boundaries because we can't handle how we feel when they have that reaction. But over time, holding the ground there and letting that reaction happen. Like next time my sister visits, she'd booked parking. So,
or has an Uber or something. Well, like you said about that other mom that you were kind of driving around town, it's at some point, I think that resentment that festers in us when we're either not saying our boundary or being a pushover or a people pleaser, enabling others, eventually we get to decide that our feelings matter equally to everyone else or some version of that.
Exactly. And also, too, if you want something, like, so say now, if a friend, actually, I would not drive to the Sydney airport. I live in Sydney now for anything, not even for my own family. I don't even drive there for me. I can't stand it. It creeps me out. It's scary. It's too busy. Like, so I just Uber it, baby. I hang the expense, or train, because I don't mind the train. But it's kind of like, if you would do it, so say they wanted me to take them to something else and it was an hour away, and I might, but I would say, well, you're covering the petrol or whatever it is, or fuel, whatever you call it. Like, what is the hang-up point for you? Because sometimes it's kind of like it's an expense. It's not just energy and time, but it's also money. Or it's kind of like if you go out for dinner, like most of my friends, I shout this time, you shout that time. It's kind of, it is what it is. But I've got a couple of friends who are real like line by line item. Yeah. And so it's kind of like, well, you just pay your half and I pay. Like, what is it? And it doesn't need to be across the board for everyone in your life. It could be for some friends, you do, I do. And for other friends, it'd be like, and like there'll be some people too, like most people know, don't touch stuff off my plate. Like I have got through the kid thing where people, so it's kind of like, if you want that, order it yourself, especially if you go somewhere. Like, it's funny, my sister and I went on a cruise, and I like chips. You guys call them fries. Mm-hmm. And she's like, she doesn't like chips, but she does, but she'll just pinch mine. And I'll be like, order your own. We're not paying for them. We've already paid for the trip. But it's kind of like, what is the boundary? I don't like people. I get the food that I like. Unless we go somewhere and we decided ahead of time we're having a share platter or something. But, like, don't just assume, and communicating that. And people are like, oh, yeah, don't touch Suze's food.
That's so funny. Well, and I think it's a good part of learning about ourselves. I would imagine it's probably a lot of what you help your clients with in coaching is really just understanding, like you said, well, what's the sticking point for you here? Is it that you're spending your gas, your petrol? Is it that you're taking the time, like deducing it down to exactly what the feeling is maybe, or the resistance, and then creating the boundary around that? Is that right?
100%. It's a case by case basis. Like, people often ask me, why don't I have a formula, or why don't I have a blueprint, or why don't I have a structure or 6 steps? Because there isn't that. Every person, every scenario is different. I have different boundaries with my kids than I do with my extended family, than I do with people I don't know. And also, it's funny, like, when people get to know your boundaries, my son, he, as I said, he's very literal. He had this homework and it said, your mum has 12 chocolates. You asked for 6. How many chocolates does your mum have? And he wrote 12 and the teacher marked him as wrong. And I actually had to say, and it was so funny, it's like, my mum doesn't share. So,
oh, that's hilarious.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not that he couldn't do the math. It was like, if you want him to go 12 minus 6, or your mum gave you 6, like, but how do you phrase the question?
Yeah.
Because it's like, you phrase the question, you asked for 6, how many does she have? She still has 12, baby, because she said no.
It's such a good point to really be minding the way that we communicate and making sure the other person is receiving what we're communicating, and maybe even saying it back so we can make sure we're on the same, just because I say it one way doesn't mean you hear that.
Is such a great thing. Like, what did you hear me say? Not in a, what did you hear me say, court of law kind of thing. But
because then it's like, I heard you say you don't want to go to lunch with me. Like, maybe that's not what you said. You just said, like, can we just pick our own food?
How does that land for you? Or so that you're on the same page. Like, I as I said, my friends text me first, and so something my friends do is they go, you got spoons, which means, have you got availability to listen to my event today? And it's so funny, it wasn't that long ago. A friend said, you got spoons. I had so much stuff going on with the kids, I couldn't see above water. And I'm like, not today, hit me up next week.
Yeah.
Anyway, they come back to me. They're broken up with their fiance. I was like, oh my God, I would have made spoons for that.
Yeah,
so now we need another
category
for our communication. Because, like, you got spoons. I thought you just wanted to vent about your boss or something. I didn't realize your whole life was changing. So
well, that's such a good point. Asking that person, like, are you available? I have kind of the other side of that coin where I am often saying, okay, pause. Do you need me to just hear you right now? Are you looking for some brainstorming solutions? I tend to be, like, very solution oriented, and that's often what people are coming to me for. But, like, my kiddos often just want to, like, emotionally vomit the thing, and that's also fine. But I just need to know so that they're feeling supported as we're having the communication.
How can I support you right now is an amazing sentence.
I say that
sometimes
so
people
much.
just want to be heard, as you said.
Yeah.
And, like, with my friends or whatever, I'll be like, do you want the coach answer or do you want the friend answer? He's an asshole. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
So it's kind of like, but, and
which hat?
Or if they send me something, as I said, like, do you want a cheerlead? Oh, this is amazing. Or do you want what I really think? And most people will say both. And then, so it's kind of like, you can say that there. But I think sometimes choosing your audience for who you go to as well. Like, totally. I will never ask my dad, what does he think of something? Because he has no filter. He'll always just say exactly what he thinks. And sometimes I just need to be told it's amazing. So then I'll go to a friend and go, tell me I'm amazing. Do you know what I mean? And I think you having that little wherewithal too, of knowing how you respond to things. Because, I also am a fixer. I'm the person you go to in an emergency. But sometimes people don't want fixing. Most of the time people just want to be heard.
Well, and it's a big part of, I think, taking our own responsibility too, to say, like, hey, Suzanne, like, I know you really are going to want to help me with this, but actually I just want to complain for 5 minutes, or you have 5 minutes for that. Like, it's kind of both taking responsibility for the relationship, really.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I love what you said, that if you're wanting to make a boundary with someone, it's because you're wanting to continue the relationship, just with maybe some more boundaries.
Yes. Boundaries aren't a bad thing. They're a good thing. We want to keep this going, but I want to keep it going in a way that it's a win-win, not a way where I feel like I have to compromise myself constantly. Because like, I'm very direct. I'm also very Aussie, so a lot of my clients are American. So sometimes I have to want, like, this might have been an Aussieism, or it's like, so like, it's funny. The other day I had a client and she was coming up with a new platform thing, and she wanted to put the same thing on Substack, Medium, Patreon, and test where she's going to get her most traction. And I was like, oh, so you're going to put the same shit everywhere. And then I was like, oh, hang on. I didn't mean. And she's also Australian. So she's like, no, I get you. Because like, you're shit. Yeah. You know, but if I'd said that to perhaps an American client, they might be like, oh my gosh, you say my work's bad. And I'm like, no, the same shit everywhere is in the same content. So it's kind of like, is it a cultural or a language, or like however your brain is processing the thing versus, you know, how you word it. So when people, that's why I literally say on my bio everywhere, I'm a sweary fairy. Stuff's gonna come out.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised. And I remember my mum my mum's now passed, but when I first became 100% me in my business, like, I don't have the makeup photos on my site because I don't wear makeup. I've got the same shirts and stuff that I wear every day. And she's like, what happens when people read your swear words on your homepage? I'll be like, it'll prepare them for when I say I'm in session.
I really loved that about your website, and especially the way that you write those newsletters that I'm now raving about to everybody. There's a realness in it. It's kind of a stripping away, which in my perspective as a little American over here, I do have some amazing Aussie friends, and you guys do tend to be very who you are for the most part, which I really love, because it just gives other people permission to know how to come to the party with you. And like, you have even one section of like, hey, you can wear your PJs to our meetings. It's fine. Like, it's, I really love that realness. And I'm sure a lot of people are drawn to you because they don't have to pretend.
Yeah. And it's funny, I did the DISC profile or whatever, that personality one, like I paid and got it done professionally not that long ago. And they said I was the only person they'd ever seen, like the profiler, whose profile was exactly the same for personal and business. Like, usually,
interesting.
You have, and I was like, because who I am is who I am. Like, I don't edit in my business. I don't edit in my life. And it's funny, people will often tell you how you got to be. Like, you can't do this unless. And I was like, according to who? Did Moses write that in stone? Like, it's just,
exactly.
Like, yes, follow the letter of the law, wear your seatbelts, drive the speed limit, all that sort of stuff. Don't drink and drive. But a lot of the things that you should do in business are just told by someone who's trying to sell you something anyway. Everyone who complains about how my podcast is unedited is usually the people who run a podcast editing service and are trying to sell me their shit.
That's so funny. I mean, you had my heart the minute we emailed, because I don't edit either. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I just very little front and back and nothing in the middle, because that's just not my jam either. And you'll, just to your point earlier about how we were talking about, you'll get one or two stray emails back about not liking your emails and your storytelling. And it's like, well, those people weren't for you anyway. And, bless them on their way. And find someone you like.
Sometimes you say something that will trigger someone. Like, sometimes it'll be a long-time reader. It'll be somebody who's been on my list for a long time, and whatever I said that day hit too close to the mark.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, sometimes they unsubscribe quietly. Sometimes they unsubscribe loudly. Sometimes they come back. And it's like, it's never about me. And I think when we realize people's reaction is very little to do with us, because I can say the same thing to 2,000 people and one of them can be bent out of shape and the others, and then you tend to focus on that one and your people pleasing comes in, and then it's kind of like your stuff gets very generic. So
it's so, I mean, we can't water down everything for there's always, I've learned the hard way so many times, there's always going to be a few, not everyone's going to like me. Some people are going to reject me just based on the title of an email or the way I'm wearing my hair that day. And like,
it's usually
that's
my
about
eyebrows.
them.
I get lots of stuff about my eyebrows.
That's so funny.
I find that interesting. Or the offhand comments that I say, because I'm just so direct. Like, I said something recently, I never meant it in an offensive way. I was like, do you have imposter syndrome, or are you just not good at it? Like, it's so funny, because everyone's like, I got imposter syndrome. And it's like, but if you haven't done the thing yet, you're not good at it. You can't have imposter syndrome.
That's a valid piece of it.
So it's just kind of like, but I didn't mean it to be like, say, you suck at life. It's like, you haven't done it enough times.
Yeah, I think that's really valid. And the truth is, not everyone likes to look at themselves. People tend to be quick to lash. So I just think that's so important to keep in our consideration when we are making boundaries or exercising boundaries. Like, hey, it's okay if they don't like it, or they get angry because maybe they didn't have permission to make that boundary, or
that's usually what it is.
Yeah.
You've been audacious enough to say something that they're dying to say. And when they do come back, it's always interesting. The number of people who come back, it's usually because you said something, it hit too close to home. How dare you say that? Because I've always wanted to say it, but I couldn't.
Yeah. And they often don't say that, but just that's part of the mix some of the time.
I want to respect your... later. I was just like 6 months later.
I know. That's great. I want to respect your time. I know you've got things today. I know we're in very different time zones. Will you tell the people? I will link everything in the show notes. Will you let everyone know how to find you? Definitely highly recommend subscribing to your newsletter.
Best place to find me is my website, SuzanneCulberg.com. And if you've got any questions or whatever, the most funnest page on my website, SuzanneCulberg.com/contact. Anything you've got about the episode that you want to share, please feel free to go there, fill it in. You'll know within a minute whether I'm for you. And depending on how you answer my contact page, I'll know. Because, that's the biggest thing. My contact page gets a lot of people offside. And I'm like, yeah, it's deliberately that way.
That's funny. Well, and you've got a book and you've got programs and you've got coaching. Oh, I've been all through your website. And I love the newsletter. Like I said, I think it's a real glimpse into your actual personality and just real life day to day. I keep thinking about the one where your kiddo had the school recital, and it just took me back to those days of going to those school recitals and drop offs and where's my kid, and okay, I got to just trust that they found the teachers they're supposed to be with and someone's going to organize them. And I too have one that agrees to things and then won't come out. And so I felt that one. So thank you for really so openly, not just sharing here with us today, but for those that do get on your newsletter and kind of integrate into your system, you're sharing real and true and about your real life all the time, which I really appreciate.
Thanks for having me, Joy. This has been fabulous.
Thank you. I'm going to shift gears and put you through our spirit speed round very quickly. It's super fun and easy, as you know. Will you share one thing that really shocked you or was unexpected as you started to get very clear and assertive in your boundaries?
How many people weren't affronted by it? Like how few are people? I think it's, we tend to have one traumatic experience or one thing that's kind of locked in our mind, but how most people are like, yeah, sure. Like it's not a big deal. Like I'm breathing into a paper bag. Even to this day, sometimes when I ask people for things, I'm like, oh, and they're like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah. How often it's not what you think it's going to be. People are pretty cool with it.
Oh, that's a good one. If you got to spend a day in the spirit world, you got the full tour, you got to spend time with everyone who you've ever known who's now crossed over, and it's almost time to return to your life, and your guide tells you you have 1 hour and you can spend it with anyone who's on the other side, who do you choose and why?
I actually had this conversation with my son the other day. We were watching a show and somebody got a half an hour ticket to spend with anybody. And my answer then was my mother. But what was interesting after talking to him is actually my grandmother, because I never met her. She passed before I was born. And I was like, because he said that. He's like, I'd love to meet her. And I was like, I would too, actually, because all the stories my mum used to share. So my grandma.
What a cool conversation to have with a kiddo, too. I feel like sometimes they have like such delicious answers. Even though we have spiritual and intuitive gifts, we have very human lives. What's one more quirky thing about you that people might be surprised to learn?
Although I'm ridiculously introverted, my very first job was as a clown.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, that's good. I mean, people don't see you necessarily, so I could get that. You could step into a different persona. Will you leave us with a pearl of wisdom? What's one piece of advice that you wish you had had earlier on in your journey?
When you stop people pleasing, some people will not be pleased.
I love it.
But most like cheerleading for you and like, oh, thank goodness, especially the ones who love you most, your friends, your family, your partner, if you have one. They'll be like, oh, thank goodness, she has a backbone. They like it. They appreciate it.
Well, it gives them permission to also say, I don't like smelly perfume or whatever.
It's so freeing to live a life where you don't have to worry about the backlash and stuff, because people will just be honest with you too. And sometimes other people's responses to you can sting, but then it's like, that's just how they're feeling at that given moment. Nothing to do with you. Like, don't take so much life personally, and then life will be so much more joyous.
I love that. Well, I hope everyone will check out SuzanneCulberg.com. Everything's in the show notes. You can easily just click away and get right to Suzanne and her amazing newsletter. Again, I highly recommend it. Thank you so much. I feel like I could chat with you for hours, but thank you for being here and shining your light with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me today for this conversation. What did you think of Suzanne, of her way of sharing, of her very special way of being caring and kind, but also very direct? It's really interesting when someone can hold space in that way, when someone can help us start to learn how to extract what is the sticking point for us in any given situation or scenario. You guys know I love that tool about pausing. But I love this added layer she gave us about not just pausing and asking, can I get back to you tomorrow on that, but also that second part, that part B of perhaps suggesting a different activity. If we realize, maybe we don't want to do that activity, maybe timing's off for that activity, but being able to suggest an alternative activity. I really like that. And I think we just had so many gems and so much wisdom from Suzanne today. If you are looking for coaching or notice through this conversation or just on your own that maybe you're wanting to more deeply understand your own boundaries or work on being in better communication about boundaries in your life, in your work, or just in general, I highly recommend checking out Suzanne Culberg. You can find her on all the social media platforms. She also has her own podcast. She wrote a book. I will link everything in the show notes for you. You heard me say it so many times in this episode. I highly recommend her newsletter. I have been really enjoying reading it, and I don't love reading everyone's newsletters, if I'm quite honest, but hers are short and entertaining. And there's a truth that runs through them that just really resonates with me. So I hope you'll subscribe and let me know if you like them as well. What were your biggest takeaways from this episode? I would love it if you would share it with me. And I'd also love it if you would share any topics or areas of the woo-woo or luminaries or spiritual gifts that you want to hear about. I'm always open to hearing about what you want to learn about or dive into next. You can always email us admin@joyfulmedium.com and share your thoughts about this episode or what you would like to hear about in a future episode. Most of you know I do the free monthly community healings. I also do a weekly reading and energy check every week, which releases on Friday. If you're not already on my email list, suggest going to my website, joyfulmedium.com. There's a free course right on the homepage called Sign Magnet. If you drop your info in there, you will get on the mailing list and you can start coming to either free events, getting the readings, getting access to the podcast just a slightly bit earlier. And I'm so grateful to have you as a part of our community, whether it's for a few minutes or for many years. Big hugs, lots of love. Bye for now from inside Spirit Speakeasy.